All right, let's dive in. The last World War ended in 1945, and since then, every major military power on Earth has been quietly doing one thing: preparing for the next one. Not in open deserts, not in the open skies, under the water. In our last video, we talked about secret zones and places no one is allowed to go, but it turns out many of those locations exist for a disturbing reason. Weapons are being tested and developed there that the public never gets to see. Today, I'm going to show you 10 countries that have been building secret ocean weapons, and some of the things I discovered genuinely kept me up at night. By the time we reach number 1, you'll see the ocean in a very different way. Number 10. Ukraine, the $400,000 drone that changed naval warfare forever. Let's start with the underdog, because this one is genuinely insane. Ukraine has no nuclear submarines, no aircraft carriers. Its navy, on paper, is not supposed to be a serious threat to a major Russian naval fleet that has been operating in the Black Sea for decades. And yet, in December 2025, Ukraine's security service, known as the SBU, announced that it had successfully struck and disabled a Russian submarine, a submarine sitting inside a protected port in Novorossiysk, using an underwater drone they built themselves. The weapon is called the Subsea Baby, and it is a completely autonomous underwater vehicle developed domestically by Ukraine. It navigated through a port protected by 3 large barges blocking the entrance, found its target in darkness, and detonated. The Russian submarine it hit, a Kilo-class vessel nicknamed the Black Hole because its hull absorbs sonar, costs around $400 million to build. The drone that took it out cost a fraction of that. This is the story no military analyst wants to say out loud because it breaks the entire economic logic of naval warfare. You don't need a $3 billion submarine to destroy a $400 million submarine anymore. You need engineers, AI targeting software, and a budget that a mid-sized corporation could cover. The SBU called it, quote, the first operation of its kind in the history of naval warfare. And what's most alarming is that Ukraine didn't get this technology from the US or NATO. They built it in a country actively being bombed. If Ukraine can do this, imagine what countries with 10 times the budget and 0 distractions are building right now. Number 9. Iran, the secret missile network beneath the seafloor. In January 2026, Iran did something unusual. They actually showed us one of their secrets. The commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, General Alireza Tangsiri, appeared on Iranian state television inside what can only be described as a James Bond villain's lair. Rows upon rows of long-range cruise missiles stored in tunnels built beneath the seafloor of the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. These aren't missiles sitting on a dock. They are hidden inside underwater tunnels that run beneath the seabed itself, making them effectively invisible to satellite surveillance and almost impossible to target with conventional airstrikes. The missiles stored inside, including a weapon called the Qadr 380L, have a confirmed range exceeding 1,000 kilometers, that's 621 miles, and come equipped with smart guidance systems that can track and adjust course all the way to impact. Here is the strategic reality that makes this genuinely frightening. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which roughly 1/5 of all global oil consumption passes every single day, sits directly within range of these tunnels. Iran's naval commander said plainly on camera that if Iran is attacked, the strait will not be safe. He wasn't being theatrical, he was doing a press conference inside the weapon that would close it. 20% of the world's oil supply held hostage by missiles in tunnels nobody knew existed 6 months ago. And remember, this is the thing they decided to show us. Whatever they're keeping secret is presumably worse. Keep watching because the next country has a weapon so large and so bizarre it barely sounds real. Number 8. Russia, the underwater drone built to create a nuclear tsunami. Russia's weapon is called Poseidon, and I want you to understand the scale of what I'm about to describe before I tell you what it does. Poseidon is an autonomous underwater drone roughly the size of a small submarine. It is powered by a miniature nuclear reactor, giving it effectively unlimited range. It can dive to depths of over 3,000 feet, travel at speeds that make interception nearly impossible, and it carries a nuclear warhead in the multi-megaton range. In October 2025, Vladimir Putin stood in front of cameras and announced that Russia had successfully tested Poseidon on nuclear power for the first time, calling it, quote, a huge success. He said there is, quote, no way to intercept it. A senior Russian legislator added that it could, quote, render entire nations inoperable. Those are the words a sitting legislator used in public. Here is the physics of what Poseidon is designed to do, and this is the part that military analysts describe as the most destabilizing weapon concept since the hydrogen bomb. The multi-megaton warhead detonated near a coastal city doesn't just create an explosion. At that depth and that yield, it generates a radioactive tsunami, a wall of water hundreds of feet high carrying irradiated ocean material that would contaminate an entire coastline for decades. Washington, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, every major U.S. coastal city is a potential target for a weapon that can be launched from a submarine thousands of miles away and cannot be shot down. Russia calls it an asymmetric deterrent. The Pentagon calls it a problem they don't currently have an answer to. Number 7. North Korea, the secret nuclear submarine the world almost missed. North Korea is not supposed to have this. Their economy is roughly the size of Vermont's. International sanctions have cut off most of their access to advanced technology. Their last major submarine launch in 2023 literally capsized at the dock. And yet, in December 2025, Kim Jong-un visited a domestic shipyard and personally inspected the hull of an 8,700-ton nuclear-powered guided missile submarine under active construction. To put 8,700 tons in context, the average nuclear attack submarine in the U.S. Navy displaces around 7,900 tons. North Korea is building something bigger. With nuclear propulsion, meaning it doesn't need to surface to recharge like conventional submarines, it could theoretically operate under the Pacific Ocean for months without being detected. And if the missiles it's designed to carry are as advanced as North Korea's recent land-based tests suggest, it would give Kim Jong-un the ability to park a nuclear weapons platform off the coast of Guam, Japan, or South Korea with essentially no warning. The uncomfortable truth that defense analysts are wrestling with is this: North Korea has been under the most aggressive sanctions regime in the world for 30 years, and they still built this, which raises the question of who helped them and what else is sitting in that shipyard that state media hasn't photographed yet. Bonus dark fact, the second ship of their new Choi Hyun-class destroyer, launched in 2025, also capsized at the dock during its launch ceremony. Kim Jong-un was reportedly present. Nobody gets fired for that in North Korea. They just try again. Number 6. China, the underwater drone swarm built to sink aircraft carriers. China's weapons program is operating at a scale that makes everyone else on this list look like they're building model kits in a garage. In April 2025, Chinese military researchers announced the development of sub-launched carrier-killer drone swarms, hundreds of small autonomous drones that can be released from a submerged submarine, travel to the surface, transition to flight, and swarm a target in a coordinated AI-guided attack that overwhelms any known defensive system. In September 2025, China moved 2 super-sized unmanned submarines, essentially drone submarines the size of actual submarines, to the South China Sea for joint testing operations. In January 2025, they tested the Fei-Yi drone, a transmedium vehicle that can operate both underwater and in the air, launched directly from a submerged submarine. And the estimated inventory of Chinese autonomous underwater weapons by late 2025 stood at approximately 2,400 individual units. Here is why these matters beyond the raw numbers. The entire strategic logic of U.S. naval power in the Pacific has been built around aircraft carrier strike groups, massive $13 billion warships surrounded by protective destroyers and submarines. China's drone swarm program is specifically engineered to overwhelm the defenses of those carrier groups. Not to go around them, to go through them. You can defend against one torpedo. You can defend against 5 torpedoes. Nobody has a tested doctrine for defending against 387 coordinated autonomous weapons attacking simultaneously from multiple vectors. The aircraft carrier, this symbol of American military dominance for 80 years, may be becoming obsolete, and China is the one making it obsolete. Stay with me because the next one involves a country that turned a war it was losing into a testing ground for the most advanced ocean weapon technology in the world. Number 5. The United States. The secret pods hidden on the ocean floor. Yes, the US is on this list, and while everyone knows about Virginia-class submarines and Trident missiles, the program that should genuinely be keeping you up at night is one that barely gets discussed outside of defense journals. DARPA, the Pentagon's research agency, the same people who invented the internet, has been developing a program called upward falling payloads. The concept is exactly as unsettling as it sounds. Pre-positioned pods, roughly 15 feet tall and weighing 5,000 pounds each, are placed on the ocean floor in strategic locations across the world's oceans. They go into hibernation. They could sit there for months or years, completely undetectable, blending into the seafloor. Then, when a command is sent, they wake up, they rise to the surface, and they release their payload, which could be surveillance drones, electronic warfare systems, or weapons, into exactly the area they were pre-positioned to cover. Think about what this means strategically. The US military could, right now, have weapon systems pre-positioned at the bottom of the South China Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Baltic, and the Arctic, all before any conflict begins, all undetectable, all activatable on command. Number 4. Russia, the secret Arctic surveillance network built with stolen Western technology. Russia makes the list twice because they've been doing twice the work in secret. In October 2025, a major cross-border investigation led by German media outlets NDR, WDR, and Süddeutsche Zeitung, working with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, revealed that Russia had secretly built a massive underwater surveillance network in the Arctic using technology acquired from Western European, American, and Asian defense companies. The program is called Harmony. Using a network of shell companies registered in Cyprus, the Seychelles, Belize, and the British Virgin Islands, Russian defense contractors quietly purchased over $50 million worth of sonars, underwater robots, fiber optic cables, and research vessels from Western suppliers, many of whom had no idea their equipment was going to Russia. Harmony is a constellation of seabed sensors in the Barents Sea, designed to detect NATO submarines approaching Russia's nuclear weapon storage facilities in the Arctic. The reason these matters: Russia's nuclear submarines operating in the Arctic are the most survivable part of their nuclear deterrent. They can hide under Arctic ice sheets, making them nearly impossible to track. Harmony is designed to protect those submarines from being hunted, and it was built, in significant part, with technology supplied by the very countries it's designed to defend against. The Norwegian intelligence chief, when informed of the investigation, stated plainly that Russia, quote, continuously tries to evade Western sanctions and export regulations. That's the polite diplomatic version of, they've been doing this for years and we couldn't stop them. Number 3. United Kingdom, the nuclear submarine that fires drone torpedoes. The UK doesn't always make the top of these lists, but in July 2025, the Royal Navy quietly did something that changed submarine warfare doctrine overnight. A nuclear-powered Astute-class submarine displacing 7,400 tons, armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, fired an autonomous underwater drone directly out of one of its torpedo tubes while submerged. The drone, launched through the same 533mm tube designed for the Spearfish heavyweight torpedo, is capable of conducting reconnaissance, seabed mapping, and threat detection completely independently before transmitting data back to the submarine. And the Spearfish itself, which the UK has been quietly upgrading through a $270 million program called Spearfish Mod 1, has been redesigned with a new warhead, fully digitized control systems, and fiber optic guidance that makes it dramatically more lethal and precise than its predecessor. What the UK has essentially done is turned its submarines into mobile command centers that can deploy a network of AI-guided scouts ahead of them, see everything in a wide radius, and then engage with a weapon system that the target cannot realistically detect until it's too late. It's the underwater equivalent of a fighter jet that can launch its own surveillance satellites. And the UK did all of this while simultaneously partnering with the US and Australia on AUKUS, the trilateral agreement that will eventually give Australia its own nuclear-powered submarine fleet by the 2040s. 3 English-speaking nations coordinating a unified underwater weapons strategy, expanding simultaneously. That is not a defensive posture, that is preparation. Number 2. Australia. The ghost shark drones hidden beneath the ocean. Speaking of AUKUS, Australia has been patient. While the UK and US get the flashy headlines, Australia has been writing very large checks for something that most people haven't paid attention to yet. In 2025, the Australian government announced a $1.7 billion investment to acquire dozens of ghost shark autonomous underwater vehicles, exact numbers classified. Ghost Shark is roughly the size of a minibus. It is powered by artificial intelligence. It can conduct intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions and execute strike operations at what the Australian government described as extremely long distances from the Australian mainland. Each unit can be deployed from a warship, a submarine, or directly from the coastline. It is, in practical terms, an unmanned submarine with a weapons payload and no crew to protect. Here is the uncomfortable strategic math that Australia's own defense analysts are now openly debating. Nuclear-powered crewed submarines of the AUKUS program won't be ready until the early 2040s. Ghost sharks are ready now. And advances in quantum sensing, AI-assisted satellite tracking, and distributed ocean sensor networks mean that by the 2040s, crewed submarines may be detectable in ways they currently are not, making billion-dollar crewed submarines potentially vulnerable precisely when they're delivered. Australia may have accidentally stumbled into the right answer for the wrong reasons. The future of undersea warfare might not be a $5 billion submarine with 135 sailors inside it. It might be 50 ghost sharks operating as a coordinated autonomous swarm that costs a tenth as much and risks 0 lives. The ocean is becoming a place where humans are optional. Number 1. China. The technology that turns the ocean transparent. Everything we've talked about today, every single weapon, from Ukraine's subsea baby to Russia's Poseidon, all of it depends on one fundamental assumption, that submarines can hide, that the ocean is dark enough, deep enough, and complex enough to conceal what's moving through it. For most of naval history, that assumption has been correct. What China is now developing threatens to make it permanently false. China is pouring resources into what defense scientists call the transparent ocean concept, a network of AI-integrated underwater sensors, satellite-linked surveillance buoys, quantum sensing technology, and deep learning data processing systems that would, in theory, allow China to see and track every submarine operating in the Pacific in real time. If this technology reaches full operational capability, every submarine on Earth, American, Russian, British, Australian, all of them becomes visible, trackable, targetable. The entire deterrence logic of the nuclear age, the idea that submarine-launched nuclear missiles are survivable because submarines can't be found, collapses overnight. The Guardian reported in September 2025 that advances in quantum sensing and satellite integration are accelerating, and that Australia's AUKUS submarines could be vulnerable to exactly this technology by the time they're delivered in the 2040s. The arms race happening in the ocean right now is not just about who has the biggest weapon, it's about who can see and who can hide. The ocean has never been empty. It's never been peaceful. But what's happening beneath its surface right now in 2026 is unlike anything in history. 10 countries, 10 weapons programs, and a technology race that could determine the outcome of a conflict none of us want, but all of us should be paying attention to. That's 10 countries, 10 weapons, and one ocean that is a lot more crowded than the textbooks tell you. And look, if this made you a little uncomfortable, good, it should. If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, subscribe right now and hit the bell because we are covering the deepest, strangest, most classified corners of the world one video at a time. And if you missed our last video on the 10 restricted ocean zones that governments don't want you to know about, including a radioactive lagoon, a secret military island, and the place where the internet physically lives on the ocean floor, that one is waiting for you right now. It pairs perfectly with this one. We'll see you there. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep asking the questions they'd rather you didn't.